Hello, everyone. Welcome to Harry's and Yes, Club of Water. By far the coolest Rotary club in the entire world that I would remember. Yeah. It's a great day to be a Rotarian, but we follow the four tests. If you indulge me, here she goes. The fourth test is this: is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned? I am your president, Aaron Jacobs, and it is my pleasure to have you at our club today. Make sure your devices are on silent. Our opening song, My Country, again, My Country Tis of Thee, and the pledge will be led by Kevin Geary, followed by the invocation by Eric Chase, and visitor introductions by Natalie Dennis. Calvin. It's going to be one of those days.
That's to our at-home audience for what just happened again. Rotarians, please join me. For my country, tis of thee. My country, Pilgrim's pride from every mountainside, let freedom ring. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will you prepare yourself in the way you're most accustomed to prayer? Creator God, we thank you for this time to gather as Rotarians. We thank you and are appreciative of how you created us in the same as the humankind, but have gifted us with very different ways of thinking and looking and acting. We thank you for our speaker who will tell us about a time and an experience of youth exchange and how looking at things maybe differently from another culture's perspective or a different context may open us to a new world. We thank you for the food, the hands that prepared it and served it. May we use it to nourish our bodies so that we may continue to serve you through Rotary and service above ourselves. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Hello, everyone. I have the honor of introducing our guests today. And when I call your name, you are a guest. Please stand and remain standing until President Aaron has welcomed you. Our first guest is actually our speaker, Gelisse Seidel from the Youth Exchange. We have Amber Majeski Stockholm, also the Youth Exchange, Byron Seidel, Youth Exchange, Kira Bistari, Youth Exchange, Bree Miley, Glenn Spinello, Katie Martini, yes, I did ask, from Rob Bowen, Ada Miller, Jake Miller, Scarlett Barshinger, Alyssa Barshinger, Casey French, Mike Osherman, Zoe Kurowski, Ashley Etzweiler, James Anderson IV, James Anderson III brought him, and I believe it's Willis, forgive me, or Wills Anderson. I can't make out the spelling. Forgive me for not asking.
Thank you, Natalie. It's great meeting new people and making new friends, and just your being here allows that to happen. You will find this to be the most gracious club where the food is great, the program is outstanding, and the members are second to none. Please visit us often and consider being a Rotarian yourself. Rotarians, help me welcome our guests today.
Thank you.
Let's do some announcements. Youth Exchange, who ironically is our program today, but they also have a meeting on August 17th at 12 o'clock via Zoom. The IDEA committee, otherwise known as IDEA, will meet on August 21st at 8 a.m. via Zoom. And the Communications Committee will meet on August 22nd at 3:30 p.m. at The Grill at Regents Glen. That doesn't sound like Zoom to me. And what's really nice here, we're going to hear from Mike Osherman a little bit, so I'm going to steal a little bit of his thunder. He's going to have a croquet tune-up session at his house on August 27th at 2 o'clock. So if you're thinking about playing but haven't played in years, here's your opportunity to take a couple practice swings. Refreshments will be included, and his address is 761 Apple Wine Court in York. I find this to be a very generous offer from Mike and a great chance to both network with fellow Rotarians while preparing to bring your best game possible for our Love for Community event. So please let Mike know if you're able to attend. On to another announcement. I'd like to invite past President Al Sykes to the podium to talk about Ride for Polio. Al.
You know, Aaron, I'd like to congratulate you. This is a very brave thing for you to do, relinquishing the microphone to me. I only needed 11,780 votes, and just saying. This is a save the date announcement. Now, I know that cost me more than half of my audience, because everyone knows that guys do not save the date. Okay. But fortunately, the other half of my audience does. If Cousin Susie is getting married in October of 2025, it's on the calendar. But don't worry, guys, you will get hard copy eventually. Now, what is the date that we are saving? We are saving October 22nd, which is a Sunday at 2 p.m. And why are we saving that date? Because the York Club, along with the East York, North York, and Uptown clubs, is going to host, I guess it would be are going to host, the District 7390 third Ride to Eradicate Polio bike ride. We will be meeting and starting at Lafayette Park, which you should know is off Pershing at Philadelphia, near Philadelphia Market. We're going to ride down the York Heritage Rail Trail to the other side of the Howard Tunnel. And that's a ride of about 6 miles, and of course back, unless you choose not to. If you would choose not to ride that far, we'll have somebody at Hartman Station. And we really, if you really want to take a challenge and ride the whole way, we will set something up and we'll bring you back from New Freedom if that's really what you would like to do. The ride is free because it's on the rail trail, and who am I to tell you have to pay to ride on the rail trail? However, if you don't, we don't raise any money for polio. And that's, actually the point. So what we're asking is for a donation of $50. And that $50 will get you a replica of this year's swell t-shirt and some refreshments at Lafayette Park and nearby at the end of the ride. So again, don't worry. You'll hear more about it, guys. It's okay. The date is Sunday, October 22nd, and you'll need a bicycle. Thank you.
Thank you, past President Al. It's always comforting to know that you don't charge for the jokes, only for the laughs. It's a great... Some of you laughed. Anyway, thank you for that announcement, and we look forward to that event. On to the next part of the program. We're going to hear in a moment from another past president, that'd be past President Rob Bowen, and we're going to talk about the President's Challenge. So during the changing of the guard, I mentioned that I would be implementing what I call the President's Challenge. And that challenge begins today. The challenge is about service. It's about your service, our committee's service, and our club's service. My challenge to all of the above is to increase our service to both our membership and our community by virtue of our committees. And we have a lot of committees, 28 committees if you don't count the board of directors. And I bet you can't name them all. And I'll go double or nothing that if you can name them all, you don't know what they all do. And that would bring us to the point why we're here today. So with that in mind, I have scheduled one committee for almost every week of this Rotary year to come to the podium and deliver to our members 4 critical points. Number 1, inform. Describe the committee to the club at large so they are aware of its role and purpose. Number 2, create awareness of the project or projects that your committee participates in, why it's important, and how others can help. Number 3, invite Rotarians to share their ideas that they may have for projects that would be a good fit for the committee. And lastly, recruit. Invite Rotarians to become a member of your committee. Who is this a good fit for? When and how often do you meet? What do committee members enjoy about being on the committee? Are there committee members that you want to highlight? So here's the challenge. I challenge each committee to bring on at least one new member and to try at least one new thing. Second challenge, I challenge our service committees to either create new projects and attract new members to their committees. Number 3, I challenge our members to join a new or additional committee, bring forth a new idea, and volunteer for at least one service project during the year. And lastly, I challenge everyone in this club to fully understand not only what services that we do, but what services we're capable of doing. We are a large club and we have a lot of possibilities. So if we are to create hope in the world, as Rotary International says we should be doing, it only happens through the power of our committees. That's what Rotary does. So please consider all of you rising to the challenge so that we can continue to strengthen our club and enhance our communities. Now, having said that, I'd like to introduce a man who never ceases to impress. He's behind you, Rob. Oh, no, it is Rob. Past President Rob Bowen.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Rob.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You bet.
All right. After that introduction, how can I go wrong? I think I have all 4 of the 4 points here. But anyway, hello, Rotarians. I'm talking about the networking and the fellowship committee. I handle both of those, or I chair both of those. The networking committee has been a long-standing committee which seeks to visit local businesses to learn about their products, services, facilities, and how they operate in our community. These tours are generally accompanied by a lunch, followed by a presentation, then a plant tour or office tour. There are generally no charge to participants, and they provide a fascinating look into the businesses around us. Most recently, we toured Biotech LLC in Zionsview, LifePath, York Water Company's Brillhart Pumping Station. Thank you, JT. Hollywood Casino. Everyone liked that one. York Literacy Council's new offices. Thank you, Matt. Lebanon Cemetery in North York. That was fascinating. And the York County SPCA in Amigsville. Thank you, Matt. The Fellowship Committee was started about 12 years ago as a way for Rotarians to get to know each other outside of the Wednesday meeting. They're generally a Dutch treat. You don't have to wear wooden shoes. It's a focus on establishments in downtown York. That was a Walt Tilley joke, but he was the only one smiling on that. It's in downtown York. We try to get into new businesses to showcase their contribution to the downtown atmosphere. Most recently, we visited the Box Hill Club, the pub. York Revolution's Diamond Deck was last year. The Hotel Yorktown Rooftop, Gear House Brewing and Architect Pizza. And that was kind of funny. They had their first drag bingo that night. So it was kind of like, oh, Rotary is setting more precedents. Okay, President Glenn loves to hear about that. Okay, and Aviano's featured past President Glenn Miller as one of their guest bartenders at their many events. So that was a lot of fun. Last night, we visited the new Mesa Moreira, a new Portuguese restaurant in the Old Forge Brewing Company downtown. We had a really good turnout, and there we are. The committee members are myself, Karen McCormick, Eric Chase, Jenny Goodling, Dick Julian, Joan Mummert as being a board member, Jack Rhodes, Brad Smith, Glenn Smith, the Smith brothers, and Wade Williams. So we have a good team here. Now, potential events, what we have scheduled for this year. We have the Etzweiler Bungalow Crab Feed coming up, and you can write this down because it's only about 2 weeks away. On Thursday, August the 31st, the Etzweilers are so generous to host us at their river bungalow, and all you can eat crabs. You bring your own beverage. It's a real fun night, and thank you, Ashley, and your family. A ride on the Chief Uncas, not the Chef Uncas, as my email to Aaron said. He wondered who Chef Uncas was. Chief Uncas is the electric boat down at the Susquehanna River National Heritage Area. We're going to try to get a charter for that. We can take up to 24 members. If we have more than that, we might have 2 rides scheduled. I don't have a date yet on that. We're working. A tour of the new section of Logos Academy, a tour of Clark's Warehouse in Hanover, and a tour of the York City wastewater treatment plant. A couple of those things are on the horizon. And I'm working with Glenn Smith to see if we have any more brew pubs popping up in York City that we can go visit. Remember, you get an attendance credit for each event that you attend. You also get an attendance credit if you attend one of our committee meetings that sets the planning. We would love to have people join us for the fellowship and the networking and meeting new members, which is our goal. Our committee is always looking for new ideas. So if you have in the back of your mind, why don't we go visit so-and-so? Give me a call. Give one of those members a call. This is a fun way to get to meet new Rotarians, and spouses and family are always welcome. I thank you for your support.
Thank you, past President Rob, for getting the President's Challenge off to a good start. And I have another President's Challenge. Come out August 31st to the Etzweiler's Crab Feast. And my challenge is, I bet you that I can eat more hard shell crabs than any of you in that one sitting. Can I get an amen, Ashley? Amen. So come out and see if you can take that challenge on. Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Ashley. And now it's only weeks away. I'd like to invite Casey French and Mike Osherman to the podium to talk about love for community.
So I didn't expect my partner in crime, even though I invited her, but she snuck in today. So we're going to have her speak too, which she's hardly ever at a lack of words. Yeah. Okay. So I would say save this date, and I'm sure you all remember it. It is 9/11. So put that on your calendar for sure. So it is our annual fundraiser. It's love for community. Community is what it's all about after all. I think you'd agree. And we would like to thank this year's confirmed major sponsors, and frankly, all the sponsors, but the confirmed major sponsors are, our 2 presenting sponsors are Fox 43 and North Industrial Chemicals. Our diamond sponsor is Wellspan, and our 2 platinum sponsors are Powder Mill and S&H. Let's give them a hand for their thank. Now, why am I here? I question that daily, but I'm here to get you to play croquet. Looking into my croquet past and future, what do I see? 12 players, all dressed in white. Make that 18 players to be more fun and competitive. That's what we're looking for. A pristine manicured lawn, all set up with 3 courts, except for a divot now and again, making it more interesting to maneuver. The divots are courtesy of a less than accurate golfer. 9 wickets per court, players and teams of 2, rookies and vets alike, all vying to get to the last post and tap out to win. Also, the joy you have when somebody else sends your ball to the other end of the court, and you get the revenge by doing the same to his partner or her partner. So, does it sound good to you? We are not la-ti-da or elitist. We are out for fun and fellowship, nurtured, of course, by beer. We have been declining in players in recent years and want to get back to where we belong. We have 8 players committed now, but we need 18 to make it the best we can have. If you have not played or have not played for years, jump in. It's easy. We'll help you out. We'll coach you and help you have a good game. Look, if you're intimidated by the new kids on the block, cornhole and pickleball, come back to the old comfortable backyard standard and play croquet with us. If you want to give it a try or tune up or your rusty mallet, come to my house at 761 Apple Wine Court for an afternoon tune-up on Sunday, August 27th at 2 p.m. I think I'll tap out now and let the lady speak.
The ladies are going to speak just for a couple of seconds. I miss all of you. I haven't seen you in a while, and it's great to see you. I come back once a year because croquet became part of me through Rotary Club, and we'd love to see more of you folks show up on the field. It would be great for having 18 players on the course. It's a fun opportunity. This is how I became such good friends with Mike. Question about my quality of friendships and stuff, but anyway, we'd love to have you come out and join us. It's been 10 years we've played this game. I've been here 10 times, so I really would love to have a complete court and look forward to seeing you guys on 9/11.
So I would encourage you all to sign up. We seem to be lacking people signing up for all the different sports. Please do that. It's important to us so we know how to set up and what to prepare for. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike and Casey. It's great to see you again. Hope to have you back more often. I opened up the meeting by saying I believe that this is the coolest Rotary Club in the world. And I do. I believe that. And if you connect the dots of what you've heard today, listen to this. All the fellowship. We're playing croquet at Mike's house. We're meeting at the restaurants downtown. We're going to Ashley's for crabs. We're doing all this service together. But here's the thing. A lot of this is possible because of our love for community golf outing that supports all the service we need to do. We need you to come out. We need you to play. We need you to support. We need you to sponsor. So if you haven't done so yet, we need you, and there's still plenty of time. Having said that, now I'd like to introduce a man who's been such a mainstay and regular on this stage at Rotary so often, I wonder if he's president and not me. Ladies and gentlemen, Walt Tilley.
Thank you, President Aaron. Before I introduce today's program, I want to reintroduce one of our guests. Kai, would you please stand? Kai is our new inbound exchange student. She has been here all of 4 days. She is from Indonesia, and so we want to give her a warm welcome. So Kai, we're glad you're here. Our speaker today is Gelisse Seidel, an exchange student returning from her year overseas. She is here to share her experience with us. For many years, her family, the Seidels, hosted exchange students, more than 20 in all, including both high school and college students. It was Gelisse's dream to join the ranks of students who do an exchange year. So her presence here today is all but a foregone conclusion. Or so it seemed. But not everything is as it seems. So as Paul Harvey would say, and now the rest of the story. Gelisse applied for her exchange in September. It's not an easy application. It's more than 20 pages. It includes a medical report from a doctor, a dental report, school transcripts, a recommendation letter from a school teacher, a parent letter of support, and a personal statement from Gelisse herself. After the application is received, in October, our club holds an interview, and we interviewed her. From there, in November, Gelisse progressed to the next step, an interview by the district. including our district youth exchange officers, our ROTEC students, who are students that have gone on an exchange and returned and know what it's all about, all to evaluate whether Gelisse had the skills to succeed. Gelisse passed the interviews with flying colors. In January, she attended a party with other students who were accepted into the Outbound program, and they learned which country they were going to. Gelisse was going to the Czech Republic. In February, during President's Day weekend, Gelisse went to a retreat center with other outbound students, joined by inbound students who were here from other countries, and trainers from the District Youth Exchange Committee. And she began her training for her youth exchange year. But as I said, not everything was as it seemed. For this was February of 2020. At that time, people began dying from a mysterious disease never seen before on the planet. By March, COVID had spread to Pennsylvania. What was expected to last a few weeks, like a flu outbreak, stretched into months and then years. By April of 2020, inbound students were returning to their home countries. And in June, Gelisse's exchange was canceled. Optimistic that the pandemic would be controlled within a year, Rotary reopened the application process in September of 2020. And once again, Gelisse submitted her application. Interviews that year were held via a new technology called Zoom. Once again, Gelisse passed with flying colors. But by January, it became apparent that the countries were not comfortable in committing to hosting students from other countries. And there was no assurance that Rotary could transport students safely. Gelisse's exchange was canceled once again. So just apply in September of 2021, right? Again, not everything was as it seemed. Gelisse's mother teaches at Penn State University at its York campus. She achieved status as an associate professor, and 2021 was her year for a sabbatical. Gelisse's mother is a former exchange student herself. She decided she would take her sabbatical where she went for her exchange, which was in Denmark. And she would take Gelisse and Gelisse's brother Byron with her. And they would live in Denmark for a year. Do you get it? Gelisse now had to learn a new language, Danish, and attend school in Denmark, and learn the culture and the food and the customs in Denmark. And if she applied to be an exchange student, she would have to learn all of this and Czech. Gelisse was in Denmark with her mother and her brother, and her father remained here in the United States. And during this time, we learned another reality. The separation of Gelisse's mother and father would be permanent. They were divorced. But Gelisse remained undaunted. She applied again in September of 2021, this time remotely from Denmark. And she was interviewed again remotely from Denmark. And once again, she was accepted as an exchange student. She attended the reveal party remotely to learn that she would go to the Czech Republic. And so in the winter of 2022, while she was in Denmark learning Danish and attending school there, she began to prepare for her exchange to the Czech Republic. But all was not as it appeared. Later in the spring, Gelisse learned that she was not going to the Czech Republic. She was going to Slovakia. Gelisse had to start over. Denmark, the Czech Republic, and now Slovakia. Gelisse prepared for her exchange in the spring and summer of 2022, but all was not as it appeared. Because as she was doing so, another new reality hit. Her mother remarried. So only months before she was to start her exchange, she was part of a new extended family. Despite all of these challenges, Gelisse did not just go on her exchange, she embraced it and she thrived. I read all of her monthly reports, and they are amazing. They are descriptive as she shared her experiences and her feelings. You are about to hear for yourself about her exchange year, but as you listen to her presentation, I wanted you to have the context in which it occurred. Gelisse, every exchange student is required to learn a new language, attend school in another country, experience the customs, the culture, the food. Every exchange student needs to have mental and emotional strength to succeed, but not like this. Not with the pandemic, not with the move to another country, a divorce, a change in your destination country, a remarriage in your family, all as you are trying to prepare for your exchange year. Gelisse, your successful exchange and your presence here today is a testament to your determination, your tenacity, your courage, your adaptability, and your commitment. Gelisse, congratulations. This podium is now yours. Rotarians, please welcome Gelisse Seidel.
Thank you. Okay. Much shorter than much of the other speakers, so I have to move the microphone. But thank you, Walt, for the wonderful introduction. I feel like you embellished some of the details. I didn't feel that challenging when I was going through it, but looking back, there was a lot that happened in the last 2 years. So to start, I'll go through like the languages that I learned while I was in Denmark and Slovakia. So hi, jeg hedder Gelisse. Jeg er 19 år gammel, og for 2 år siden boede jeg i Danmark. Dobrý den, volám se Gelisse, mám 19 rokov a poslední rok jsem byla na Slovensku. Hi, my name's Gelisse Seidel. I am 19 years old. 2 years ago, I was in Denmark, and last year I was in Slovakia. I am a graduate of York Suburban High School. I graduated while I was in Denmark. So I attended my graduation via Zoom at like 2 a.m. in Denmark. And then on my exchange, I went to Slovakia and District 2240, which is both Slovakia and Czech Republic combined. So that's why there was a bit of confusion about which country I was going to. And then I ended up going to the Litovský Mikuláš and Litovský Mikuláš Club. And so Litovský Mikuláš is much, much smaller than our club here in York, with only about 22 members, and they meet every Monday at around 6 p.m. My host mom was a Rotarian, and there was some confusion with the club who was going to host me. So I ended up staying with a Rotarian for the entire year instead of the traditional 2 to 3 host families that many exchange students have. The host club had many events. They were also quite close with the exchange students. They hosted 2 exchange students, and they made sure that we were a part of any activity that they had. They had a boot fit event, which is just helping people to remain active. And there was a tennis competition as well as a walk around the park. Every year, they also have a Christmas punch or mulled wine that they sell, and the donations go to different charities. Specifically this year, as Slovakia borders Ukraine, a lot of their donations went to help those suffering in Ukraine. And then the district conference was held in the Czech Republic, where we were able to present our countries in different ways. The US did the Cotton Eye Joe, of course. And we were able to see lots of different countries and meet lots of different people from even within inside Slovakia and Czech Republic. So as mentioned before, I lived in Denmark before I came to Slovakia. So I have 2 cities that I need to present about. The first one that I'll present is Aarhus, which was where I lived in Denmark. And it is the 2nd largest city in Denmark with around 400,000 people. And so we lived just outside the city. So we took mostly transportation. So I learned how to walk and take buses everywhere. And there was a lot of things to do within the city, such as there was also a university there where I was able to, you could go to clubs. I didn't go, but you could go to clubs or go to different museums to learn more about the Danish culture, as well as just student life in general. Now, Litovský Mikuláš is where I lived in Slovakia, which is located in Central Europe, not Eastern Europe. They'll get very offended if you call them Eastern European. So I lived near Poland in Litovský Mikuláš, which is near the mountains, the Tatras. And so there's a lot of sheep farming. So sheep cheese is very important, as well as logging. And so I'll first start with my school in Denmark. I went to Aarhus Gymnasium in Tilst, which is just outside of Aarhus. And I went to an IB program, which means all my classes were in English, but I still had a Danish class, and then I also attended STX, which is the Danish program. But since there was a lot of confusion with COVID and everything, we couldn't get into the Danish program. So I had extra classes compared to my other classmates. So my schedule, as typical in Denmark, is not set for the day as it is in the US. I would have to look at my calendar to see when my classes were, because I could start at 8:30 and end at 3 on Monday. And then on Tuesday, I might start at 10:30 and only have one classes. So that was a learning experience for me to learn how to manage my own schedule. Some other things that are different about Danish schools is that the graduation, they have, as you can see in the photo over there, they have these little hats that all have their name on the back that you get instead of our typical graduation hats. And they keep them for the entire year. And so once they graduate, they'll wear it all summer long, where you can see everyone with just like their little hats, which is very cool. The classes are also much smaller. I had about 60 people in my class. We did change a bit, similar to American schooling system, but that's not necessarily typical of the Danish system either. Usually you stay with one class your entire 3 years in gymnasium or high school. And then in Slovakia, it was a very similar, but still different than what I had in Denmark, where it was a small class, but there was about 25 students in my class. And then instead of just having all of us meet together in one classroom, they split the classroom in half so that some of the classes would be all 25 of us, and other the classes, there'd only be like 12 or 13 of us in the classroom. So we got more one-on-one time with the teachers. And similar, it was a different schedule each day that I had to learn. And in addition to attending school, my host mom ran a dance school. So I also attended a dance conservatory after school, where I learned jazz, contemporary, ballet, and Slovak folk dancing, which was a bit hard for me, as in the US, I danced, but only like a class here or there. And now I was in like this conservatory where I had to dance professionally with all the other students. Luckily, I'm short, I'm small, so they put me with the 13 to 15-year-olds, not the 18-year-olds. So that made my job a little bit easier, that I didn't have to do 8 years of dancing when I only had like 2. But yeah, so the class was very nice, but they all were very welcoming, and they helped me learn both Slovak culture, and just, we had a fun time together. But the most interesting, as mentioned in my thing, was history, where I was able to take it in English. As I just realized I forgot to mention, I was in a bilingual school. So half of my classes were in Slovak and half of my classes were in English. So I was able to take history and geography in English, which helps me learn more about Slovakians' perspective of World War II and World War I, as well as the general geography, which I couldn't have learned if I was in Slovak and didn't understand the language. So some Slovak foods, as it is a Central European country, there's a lot of potatoes. Same in Denmark, lots of potatoes. And so I don't have time to share all the foods that I loved eating while I was there. So I'll just narrow it down to 3. So the first one is halušky, which is the national dish of Slovakia. And it includes like a potato dough and with sheep cheese called brinza, and then also cream and pork belly on top. It might not look very good, but I promise it is very delicious. And that is my attempt at making halušky before I left. Opikanza is what you traditionally eat during Christmas time, which is bread that you make beforehand. You let it dry out, you cut it up into small pieces, and then you boil it for like 3 seconds. And then you put powdered sugar and poppy seeds on top of it. Poppy seeds is very common in many desserts in both Slovakia and Czech Republic. And then the final one is shišky, which is a fried dough, like a donut that you eat around like Carnival, Mardi Gras, same kind of a thing. And like Pennsylvania has Fastnacht, they have shišky, and it's very delicious. So as I mentioned before, my exchange was very different, as I only had one host family. So my host family was Eva, who was the dance director, Andre, who used to be in the military, but now works with his wife, Micah, who was 18, and Martin, who is 15. And so I was able to get to know their family really well, including their extended family. So I know all the grandmas, all the cousins, everybody. And I feel bad because I ended up becoming like the youngest cousin's favorite cousin, even though I'm technically not related. So My host family was very involved in the community. They were able to play multiple instruments as well as participate in sports. So I got to see a lot of different activities, such as the Barleton, which is a Rotary event where we rode bikes in order to support those with disabilities. Yes, I would love to go on and on about my host family, but again, I don't have time. So if you want me to like brag about my host family, just come up to me later. And before I went to Slovakia, I actually chose not to come back to the US when I was in Denmark. So I had like a mini exchange in Denmark before I came here. And so this is the family that I stayed with in Denmark. They're the Perkins. They have two twins who are 8, one who is 6, and then the youngest is 3. And so that was a good experience for me before I went to exchange, learning how to communicate with people that didn't understand English, mostly the young kids. And so I got really good with playing kids who didn't understand me. And so I loved staying with them, learning about how to be a person in a different home than you, like, they weren't necessarily strangers, but I didn't know them very well. So it was a good practice experience before I became an exchange student. And I was also had the opportunity before I came back from Slovakia to be able to visit them, to say hi. And so that was a good experience as well. And some holidays. I wanted to go over some holidays that I can't go over all of them, but some of them that are very different than what we have in the US. For example, All Saints Day, instead of Halloween, they have All Saints Day on November 1st, which is where they honor their ancestors. So you go around to the different graves of their ancestors and they light candles in memory of them. Another one is their Christmas celebrations. They instead celebrate Christmas on the 24th, and it's all about the food. And so you're not allowed to eat all day until the dinner at the 24th, and it's very a formal occasion. And they also set out a plate that's always empty, but just in case somebody doesn't have somewhere to go for Christmas, somebody has a place for them to eat and sit. And then they also get gifts by Ježiško, or little baby Jesus, and on the night of the 24th. And then they always have the tradition of watching like a Cinderella movie during that time. And then the most notable holiday is probably Easter Monday, which you probably have heard about if you heard anything about Slovakia or Czech Republic, where they make willow whips out of young trees, the boys, and then they go to the women of the household and they whip them and they sing a little poem and they splash water on them and they put a perfume on them for health and beauty. And so I was woken up with that. And then the women of the household, they make food and they give the boys treats. And then the men of the household, they go off to the different women that they know at different families, while different men come to the house. And so it's a bit controversial now whether or not people will still do that. But usually no one's like going at it with the whip. It's usually very light. Unless you are 3, then you're definitely going at it. And so then in Denmark, there's also some different holidays. There's a lot of Christmas holidays, such as they get gifts from Nisse every day of the leading up to the 24th from the Nisse, and that's for the kids. So instead of getting stockings, they get little gifts from the Nisse. And then the Santa Lucia Day happens on December 13th, which is celebrating the Saint Lucia. And all the women, all the girls dress in white, and they have like wreaths of candles on their head, and they have a march and a dance in order to celebrate her. And then on Christmas, they also do it on Christmas Eve, and it's by Juleman, or like Santa, more closely similar to Santa Claus. And then they have different activities like a pakalai, which is like White Elephant, but you had dice and it's very competitive as you're trying to steal gifts from each other. And then you also get gifts and have a great Christmas dinner as well. And then Fastelavn is what they have instead of Mardi Gras Carnival, where they have a wooden piñata filled with or barrel that's like a piñata filled with candy. But traditionally, it used to have a cat in it. So they would beat the barrel to release the cat. And that is when they dress up instead of Halloween. So those are some of the fun holidays that I learned in both Slovakia and Denmark. And so I also was able to go to many different new places. These are mostly what I went to when I was on my exchange in Slovakia. I was able to go to many castles, as both Czech Republic and Slovakia have some of the most amount of castles and castle ruins in the entire world. And so I enjoyed being able to see that, as in the US, we don't really have castles. As I lived near the mountains, I went to them many times, such as the ones in Poprad, which is some of the highest mountains in Slovakia. And then I was able to go on a skiing trip there as well. I had the opportunity to also go to 2 of the larger cities in Czech Republic, which are Prague and Brno. which were both amazing experiences as the other cities that I'd lived in previously had been very small. So it was weird going into these large cities with buildings when I hadn't really been there in like 2 years. I was also able to go to the chateau where Napoleon, there was a battle and they had to do some signage and stuff like that. But it's still cool to see these buildings, historic buildings that we don't really have in the US, as our country is relatively new compared to these countries in Europe. I was able to also go on a couple of Rotary trips. The first one was ski week, where for an entire week we learned how to ski and then we skied in the mountains. However, we were mostly, the wind became our enemy and we're not able to ski the entire time. And so you can see some of the images of me skiing as well as me looking like a raccoon as it was during carnival. And so I didn't have a costume. I like to do face paint. So I dressed up as a raccoon and ended up winning the costume competition. The other one, the most common trip that you have in Europe is the Euro tour, where we went to Paris, Barcelona, and then Rome, Florence, Venice, Naples, and Pompeii. It was a wonderful experience, a lot of walking, but I enjoyed being able to see more of the historic sites that we, again, don't really have in the US, and be able to spend this time with the other Rotary Exchange students that were also in Czechia and Slovakia. Okay, and so hopefully I didn't run too over time, and I'd like to finish with a few closing remarks. The greatest impacts of exchange for me were the independence. I had to walk to school most of the days, as well as use the public transportation, use trains by myself to go 7-8 hours. So I was able to gain greater independence through travel through that. Also learning how to balance my own schedule. My schedule didn't look the same every day. So I had to get used to what things I had in the day before compared to what I had to do in the US. Also the friends and connections that I made. I have friends all over the world, in Australia, in Netherlands, in Mexico, that I'm able to contact because of my experience in both Denmark and in Slovakia. The future after exchange, as you can see, I am going to Penn State York in global and international studies. Big surprise. And so after that, I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I want to take the time to appreciate my college experience and then decide what I'll do in the future. And then I'd like to thank all of you who made this possible for me to be able to go on exchange, even though I was technically living in another country. So I want to thank all of you for supporting me on my journey. Thank you. Oh, yes, and now I think we have time for questions.
What was the difference in the history that you learned about World War I and World War II?
Yes, so I was able, because I essentially did I forgot to mention this, but I did my junior year essentially 3 times in the US, in Denmark, and in Slovakia. That was the year that they put me in. And so I learned a lot about World War I and World War II. And mostly it wasn't differences, it was more like perspectives. In the US, obviously we focus about what we were doing before World War II and our involvement in the war. And when I was in Denmark, it was an IB program, so we were more focused on Europe. So I learned more about the Spanish Civil War leading up to the World War II. And then in Slovakia, we focused more on the Eastern Front and how Slovakia, they were actually part of Czechoslovakia, but then split up to be a fascist state during World War II. And so learning about that history and more of like the Axis power sides, and then the consequences of being part of the Axis powers and then no longer being a fascist state.
An online question from Thomas. How difficult was it for you to come back to our American culture, and did you experience a culture shock?
Oh yeah, definitely. I was gone for 2 years, so there's a lot of things I forgot. For example, I forgot traffic lights were yellow because in Europe, they're usually like black or gray. Another culture shock was just the amount of English. I spent 2 years where I didn't really understand the language a lot of the time. So I was able to like filter out the background conversations of the languages I didn't understand. But then I tuned in to English conversations. So when I came back, I couldn't filter out anything. I still have trouble doing that. And so I'm just hearing all these conversations in English. And just the amount of English in general. Like when I came out of the airport, there was the announcements in English. And it's like, wait, there's no second language? That like I was used to having there be 2 or 3 languages they would say before they even got to English.
kind of a current event question. When you were in Slovakia,
Mhm.
so close to Ukraine, how
Yes.
did your host family and the Rotary clubs and people you interacted with respond to and explain and deal with the situation in
Mhm.
Ukraine?
Yeah, that was a concern for I know a lot of Americans as well, that I was going to be bordering Ukraine. Luckily, I was on the western side, so I wasn't that close to Ukraine. But how the Rotary Club, they made lots of donations. They had Rotary members from Ukraine come in and talk about what was happening there. And so there's always current events talking about what we could do to help those, whether that was donate clothes or time. And they actually, as part of helping those in Ukraine, the District 2240, they sponsored 4 students from Ukraine in order so that even though there was war going on, that they could still be exchange students and get to experience that instead of just war.
What's one thing that you've come to appreciate about each of the 3 cultures, US, Denmark, and Slovakia?
Okay. That's a good question. In Denmark, I think I appreciated the openness. There's not very many things that are necessarily taboo. And so then you're hearing a lot more things, whether it be more sexual or just your body in general. It was nice to see a different perspective on how you could be more open. And then in Slovakia, they were very formal in their culture. So it was interesting to hear more about and see how they were more formal with their elders, how they respected elder people and stuff, which wasn't the same in Denmark and which isn't necessarily the same in the US as well. And then in the US, I appreciated the amount of different people that all live here, that were where I was living, and especially Slovakia, it was very isolated. There were only people from one group of people. Well, here in the US, we're full of different people from all over the world, which I came to appreciate.
Thank you, Gelisse. That was a great program. It's always interesting for us to see the world through the eyes of an exchange student and all the changes and differences in culture and so forth. And the one thing I really stood out to me was this ritual of throwing water and perfume on somebody for health and beauty. And I'm going to be honest, I had this urge to take my glass of water and throw it on Walt Tilley with some perfume. And I'm sorry, but I just don't think there's enough perfume to get the job done. For his health. Jeez. Only 10 more months, gang, I'm telling you. But seriously, with Walt's story there about what you had to work through just to get to that point, and your story of resilience was remarkable. And I think at the age of 19, that experience is going to create a sense of perseverance through you that's going to be carrying her throughout her life and inspires all of us. So again, let's give another round of applause for Gelisse and her story. In honor of Gelisse's program, we're donating the book, Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus by Mo Willems. It will be donated to the JCC Child Care Center along with the bookmark provided by the students of Creative York. Now, if you thought today's program was great, and it was, wait till you hear what we have for next week. Silas Chamberlain, Chief Strategy Officer at the York County Economic Alliance, and State Senator Kristen Phillips Hill will share an update on the first 3 years of the York County Trail Towns program. Launched in June of 2020, the program helps communities capture trail-based tourism to drive business growth and community investment. It is now active in 7 York County communities and has quickly gained statewide recognition as a best practice for merging economic development with outdoor recreation. The presentation will discuss the process of launching the program, its goals, and some of the early successes achieved by Trail Town partners. With that, have an amazing Rotarian week. This meeting is adjourned.